So we are on page 8 in our Hevruta book. We're talking about Parshat Noah, the Torah portion of Noah. And there are 4 main things that you need to do to prepare for this class. 1 is read the material. It's just 3 or 4 pages. 2, pick 2 or 3 teachings that stand out to you. It could be from any of the 4 sections. It could be from the summary, it could be from the gems of Torah, it could be from the Midah, or from the mitzvah section. But 2 or 3 teachings that mean something to you personally. After you pick those 2 or 3 teachings, the 3rd thing is think of 3 questions for each one of those teachings that you might be able to ask in order to facilitate conversation. And lastly, the 4th thing is think of 1, maybe 2 personal stories that you'd be willing to share that relate to the teachings. Okay, so on page 8, you have the summary of the Noah story. It says, all life on earth had become corrupt. God asks Noah to build an ark. Noah takes 120 years to build the ark. That's really already something really interesting that we could talk about. Noah was 600 years old when the flood started. How long do people live today? That's a really interesting kind of thing to talk about as well. It goes through the sending of the raven, the sending of the dove, and even God scattering the people all over the earth for building the Tower of Babel. That's all in the summary. You can read that. You don't have to teach the summary at all. You could take a piece out of it, or you can just go straight into a teaching that means something to you. So in the Gems of Torah section, it says, Noah was a righteous man and perfect in his generation. And the rabbis asked the question, well, what does that mean, in his generation? So, for example, you might say to these kids, you might be really good at math in 4th grade. You might be the best math student in your 4th grade class. But does that mean that you can go to college and master in trigonometry based on what you know? You might be the best in 4th grade, but that doesn't mean that you're necessarily the best in the world right now. We still have a lot to learn. So what does it mean that Noah was the best in his generation? Was he righteous and good in a generation of people that were so bad that God wanted to flood the world and get rid of them all? Or was he really a good person? That's a good discussion to have. The 2nd gem says Noah walked with God. What does it mean to walk with God instead of walking with people? Is it better to walk with God or walk with people? Can you think of an example, like if somebody, for example, was praying really hard and a homeless person was near them begging for food, and the person was so involved in praying to God that they ignore the homeless person who was in desperate need of food? Is that person good for walking with God, or would it be better to walk with people? And there's some nice texts about that, and maybe you have some examples of stories like that. As it goes on, it says, it came to pass after 7 days that the water of the flood were upon the earth. And so the rabbis asked the question, why after 7 days? And Rabbi Joshua ben Levi says, because God was grieving for 7 days that this was going to happen. That brings up a very deep theological question, the question of, why do bad things happen to good people? Why does God allow bad things to happen? Even if the people were bad, why not teach them to do better instead of flooding the earth? So those are tough questions to ask, but sometimes 4th graders have a lot of interesting things to say about that. It also says, make a light for the ark, and the rabbis say that that light was a pearl, like a magical pearl. You can ask the kids something simple like, have you ever had a magical experience? Have you experienced magic in your life? Have you ever felt like the voice of God was inside of you telling you something to do? Maybe not to build an ark, but maybe to be kind to someone. What does God's voice sound like to you? Then there's a section on the rainbow. You could ask the kids, what color of the rainbow do you most identify with? Are you a red person? Are you a yellow person? And what does that mean? What is your favorite color? And how does that color make you feel? Why is the rainbow a symbol of peace? What is the blessing we say when we see a rainbow? In the Midah section, Midah again means virtue or values. It's the building blocks of becoming a mensch. It's a conversation about compassion on page 10. And you could talk about, how do we have compassion? How can you feel something that you haven't experienced? If your friend is telling you about a broken leg and you've never broken your leg, how do you feel compassion for that person? Kids might have something interesting to say about that. Finally, it's the mitzvah section. Talks about feeding your animals before you eat. Why would Judaism tell us to do that? What is our relationship with animals? Also talks about, maybe you could talk about how in the ark, none of the carnivorous animals ate any of the herbivores, that there was a miracle. Have you ever experienced a miracle? That's a very quick overview of Noah, and you could see that there are all sorts of little teachings that you could select from. You just need to select 2 or 3 teachings that you like, come up with 2 or 3 questions for each teaching, a personal story, and you're ready to have a great conversation. Thank you.